The Christ and the Antichrist, chapter 14, titled, The Antichrist was possessed by evil spirits, even as a child at his second birth. Copyright from the book Muhammad, His Life from Earlier Sources, by Martin Lings, SUHAIL Academy, Lahore, Pakistan. Verse 1. It was the custom of all the great families of Arab towns to send their sons soon after their birth into the desert to be suckled and weaned and spend part of their childhood amongst one of the Bedouin tribes, writes Martin Lings, again in his bestseller, Muhammad, His Life based on the earlier sources. Martin Lings went on to unveil for us, nor had Mecca any reason for being an exception, since epidemics were not infrequent and the rate of infant mortality was high. But it was not only the desert's fresh air that they wished their sons to imbibe. That was for their bodies, but the desert has also its bounty for souls. Quraysh, Muhammad's tribe, had only recently taken to the sanctuary life, until Quraysh had told them to build for themselves houses round the sanctuary that had been more or less nomadic. So the bond with the desert had to be renewed in every generation. Fresh air for the breasts, pure Arabic for the tongue, freedom for the soul, and many of the sons of Quraysh were kept as long as 8 years in the desert, so that it might make a lasting impression upon them, though a lesser number of years was enough for that. Some of the tribes had high reputation for nursing and rearing children, and amongst these were Bani Sa'id ibn Bakr, an outlying branch of Hawazin, whose territory lay to the southeast of Mecca. Amina was in favor of entrusting her son to the care of a woman of this tribe. They came periodically to Quraysh for nurslings, and some were expected shortly. Their journey to Mecca on this occasion was described in after years by one of their number, Halima, the daughter of Abu Duaib, who was accompanied by her husband Harith and a recently born son of their own whom she was nursing. It was a year of drought, she said, and we have nothing left. I set forth on a great she-ass of mine, and we had with us an old she-male which could not yield one drop of milk. We were kept awake all night by our son, who was wailing for hunger, for I had not enough in my breast to feed him, and that ass of mine was so weak and so emaciated that I often kept the other waiting. She told how they went on their way with nothing to hope for except a fall of rain which would enable the camel and the ass to graze enough for their udders to swell a little. But by the time they reached Mecca, no rain had fallen. Once there, they set about looking for nurslings, and Amina offered her son first to one and then to another, until finally she had tried them all, and they all refused. That, said Halima, was because we hoped for some favor from the boy's father, and often we said, what will his mother and grandfather be able to do for us? Not that they would have wanted direct payment for their services, since it was considered dishonorable for women to take a fee for suckling a child, writes Mr. Lings. Mr. Lings then went on to comment, the recompense they hoped for, though less direct and less immediate, was of a far wider scope. The interchange of benefits between townsmen and the Normand was the nature of things, for each was poor where the other was rich, and rich where the other was poor. The Normand, the age-old God-given way of life to offer, the way of Abel. The sons of Cain, for it was Cain who built the first villages, has possessions and power. The advantage for the Bedouin was to make an enduring link with one of the great families. The foster mother gained a new son who would look on her as a second mother and feel a filial duty to her for the rest of his life. He would also feel himself a brother to her own children. Nor was the relationship merely a normal one. The Arabs hold that the breast is one of the channels of heredity, and that a suckling drinks qualities into his nature from the nurse who sucklings him. But little or nothing could be expected from the foster child himself until he grew up. And meantime, Meantime, his father could normally be relied on to fulfill the duties of his son. A grandfather was too remote, and in this case, they would have known that Abd al-Muttalib was an old man who could not reasonably be expected to live much longer. When he died, his sons, not his grandson, would be his heir. As for Amina, she was poor, and as to the boy, brackets Muhammad, as for the boy himself, his father had been too young to have acquired wealth. He had left his son no more than 5 camels, a small flock of sheep and goats, and 1 slave girl. Abd Allah's son, bracket Muhammad, was indeed a child of one of the great families, but he was by far the poorest nursling that these women were offered that year. On the other hand, though the foster parents were not expected to be rich, they must not be too poverty-stricken, and it was evident that Halima and her husband were poorer than any of their companions. Whenever the choice lay between her mother and another, the other was preferred and chosen, and it was not long before every one of the Bani Sa'id women, except Halima, had been entrusted with a babe. Only the poorest nurse was without a nursling, and only the poorest nursling was without a nurse. When we decided to leave Mecca, said Halima, I told my husband, I hate to return in the company of my friends without having taken a babe to suckle. I shall go to that orphan and take him. As thou will, he said, it may be that Allah, brackets, Muhammad's grandfather's Allah, will bless us in him. So I went and took him for no reason save that I could find none but him. I carried him back to where our mounts were stationed, and no sooner had I put him in my bosom than my breast overflowed with milk for him. He was growing well, she continued, and none of the other boys could match him for growth. By the time he was 2 years old, he was a well-made child, and we took him again to his mother, although we were eager that he should stay with us for the blessings he brought us. So I said to her, leave my little son with me until he grows stronger, for I fear lest he be stricken with the plague of Mecca. And we importuned her until she gave him once more into our keeping, and we brought him again to our home. One day, several months after our return, when he and his brother were with some lambs of ours behind our tents, his brother came running to us and said, that Qurayshite brother of mine, 2 men clothed in white have taken him and have laid him down and opened his breast, and they are stirring it with their hands. So I and his father went to him, and we found him standing, but his face was very pale. We drew him to us and said, what alienated thee, my son? He said, 2 men clothed in white came to me and laid me down and opened my breast and searched it for I know not what. Halima and Harith, her husband, looked this way and that, but there was no sign of the men, nor was there any blood or any wound to bear out what the 2 boys had said. No amount of questioning would make them take back their words or modify them in any respect. Yet there was not even the trace of a scar on the breast of their foster child, nor any blemish on his perfect little body. The only unusual feature was in the middle of his back between his shoulders, a small but distinct oval mark where the flesh was slightly raised, as it were, from the impress of a cupping glass, but that had been there at his birth. In after years, he was able to describe the event more fully. There came unto me 2 men clothed in white, with a gold basin full of snow. Then they laid hold upon me, and splitting open my breast, they brought forth my heart. This likewise they split open, and took from it a black cloth, which they cast away. Then they washed my heart and my breast with the snow. He also said, Satan toucheth every son of Adam the day his mother buried him, save Mary and her son, and those Martin-lings. The above is the brief testimony of the Antichrist's childhood from the accounts of his foster mom at his second coming. Martin-lings, the author of the same book we've been discussing, went on to say, Halima and Harith were convinced that the boys had been speaking the truth, and they were exceedingly shaken in conscience. Harith feared that their foster son had been possessed by an evil spirit or smitten by some spell, and he told his wife to take him with all speed to his mother before the harm he had suffered became apparent in him. So Halima took him once more to Mecca, intending to say nothing about the real reason for her change of mind. But the change was too abrupt, and Amina, Muhammad's mother, not to be deceived, finally compelled her to recount the whole story. Having heard it, she dismissed Halima's fears, saying, "Great things are in store for my little son." Then she told her of her pregnancy and of the light she had been conscious of carrying within her. Halima was reassured, but this time Amina decided to keep her son. "Living with me," she said, "and a good journey home," writes Martin Lings. The point of this story is that the Antichrist's foster parents were convinced enough, even when the Antichrist was a toddler, that he was possessed by evil spirits, that they gave him back to his natural mother, Amina. Thus, the Antichrist was possessed by evil spirits from birth. Remember those two spirits, clothed in white, who opened the Antichrist's heart and exchanged it with another. The spirits that caused Muhammad's false appearance to proclaim that Muhammad was possessed by an evil spirit. Remember also that the Antichrist authenticated this story by saying, "There came unto me two men clothed in white, with a gold basin full of snow. Then they laid hold upon me, and splitting open my breast, they brought forth my heart. This likewise they split open, and took from it a black cloth, which they cast away. Satan touched every son of Adam the day his mother buried him, save Mary and her son, as we have previously seen." The last statement from the Antichrist is the dogma of the Roman Catholics, who say that Mary was born without the original sin of Adam. This last sentence is very instructive from the Antichrist, and it gives us the clue to where those two spirits clothed in white came from. Again, Mary and her son in the Antichrist's words refer to the Christ and his physical mother, Mary. Here are those words again from the Antichrist in connection with those two evil spirits clothed in white who exchanged and corrupted his heart with another. Satan touched every son of Adam the day his mother buried him, save Mary and her son. Again, what the Antichrist is saying above is that everyone who comes into this world comes with the nature of Satan, except Mary and her son. As we have previously seen, the above statement refers to the deception of the Immaculate Conception of Mary by the Bishop of Rome and all the Roman Catholics. Again, the Immaculate Conception is a teaching of the Roman Catholic Babylonian Church. Therefore, those two men who were clothed in white that made Muhammad confess his beliefs on the Immaculate Conception must have been the agents of the Roman Catholics. Here, in recounting that event, Muhammad linked one of the dogmas of the Roman Catholics with those two evil spirits that visited him. But the point here is that the Antichrist was possessed by evil spirits from his second birth, and this is why his foster parents gave him back to his natural parents. Amen. The Christ and the Antichrist, chapter 14. Amen.